outbreaks. So this then says to us that we do have local transmission.
Friday will mark the first time since the dawn of democracy that the first sitting of the National Assembly after an election will not take place in the House. This comes as a fire gutted the old and new assembly buildings in January 2022. The institution is in the process of reconstructing the two buildings. Mercedes Besant reports.
The National Assembly chamber, where the members are sitting during plenaries or have to be sworn in during a first sitting, totally collapsed during the blaze. Preparations have been made by Parliament for the first Assembly sitting of the 7th Parliament to be convened at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, where members are expected to be sworn in. The election of the Speaker, Deputy and President will also take place at the City ICC. And while the NCOP building was not affected by the fire, its first sitting will also be at the Convention Centre, taking place on Saturday. An NCOP chairperson, deputy and chief whip of the NCOP will also be elected.
Cooperative Governance Minister Thembing Kadimeng is today expected to visit Othongati on the north of Durban following last week's devastating tornado. 12 people died when heavy winds, hail and rain battered the coastal communities, including Othongati, Sea Tides and La Mercy. The minister is also expected to announce the government's interventions. Authorities say initial assessments show that over 7,000 households have been damaged and at least 17,000 people affected. Meanwhile, an expert in town planning, Professor Hope Makirimisha Chipungu, says telling vulnerable communities not to rebuild homes in low-lying areas is pointless without a solution and support.
People they are not going to listen to you if you are bringing a problem without a solution to be specific. So you need to say there's a problem and this is the solution. If you go to people and say, do not build in this area because this is a floodplain, then the question they will ask, where do we build? And if you don't tell them where to build, then you have not done anything. People who are in charge of development control and land use management actually are responsible in terms of the zoning and where to put people. Those are the ones who need to tell them and educate people to.
Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has declared a period of mourning for 21 days following the death of the country's Vice President, Saulos Chilima. Chilima and 9 passengers perished in an aircraft crash on Monday after it disappeared from radar during a domestic flight. Kayelihle Khumalo has more.
The body of the late Vice President of Malawi, Dr. Saulos Chilima, has arrived in the capital, Lilongwe. Funeral arrangements are underway for the burial of Chilima and others who died in the helicopter crash. Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has described his late deputy as a good patriot, a formidable man, and saying his death is a terrible tragedy. Meanwhile, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says this is a moment of tragedy which we're united with the people of Malawi as they mourn the passing of a youthful leader who advanced the aspirations of his country and of the youthful continent from his position in Malawi's presidency. Kayelihle Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And Hungary will not take part in further NATO-led efforts to coordinate security assistance and training for Ukraine. It was announced at a joint news conference between the Hungarian Prime Minister and the head of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, in Budapest. Stoltenberg says Hungary has agreed not to oppose the expected measures.
No Hungarian personnel will take part in these activities, and no Hungarian funds will be used to support them. At the same time, the Prime Minister has assured me that Hungary will not oppose these efforts, enabling other allies to move forward.
The top story at 1 o'clock, Health Minister Joe Phaahla says one person has died of the monkeypox disease, with 5 cases reported in the country. The Full Circle is up next. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhaleme.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Hello, your choice hotline.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on a new Ford Ranger, Ford Puma, Ford Everest, and the Ford Tornado bus. There's a flexible deal for every budget at your nearest Ford dealership today. Limited time offer. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
The Trilidor Ultimate Big Blue Sale is now on. Get amazing discounts on the best security South Africans trust. With
She has honestly become one of my favorite people to follow on social media because she's such a delight. But, okay.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30, #Youth Month.
As I was saying, that she's become one of my favorite people to follow on social media because she's such a delight. Not only is she supremely talented and her ability to do a variety of accents is unparalleled, but also just as an artist, as a singer-songwriter, she's one of the most celebrated to come from her generation. It's Cece teaming up with Donald on this one with Landela is the name of the track. That is how we kick off the show this afternoon. I hope that you are having a fine day on this blessed Wednesday. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, coming to you live from Johannesburg. How are things holding up in your corner of the country? I hope that the sun is out and shining. We've got lots on the conversation calendar today because it is Youth Month, and so we are sticking to the theme, and we're looking at the legacy of historical youth movements and how past youth activism has shaped contemporary movements of today. We're also going to be catching up with some folks, and there is a call for more young male stem cell donors. We'll find out the state of those donation banks and what is needed there. And of course, if you are a young male, which I'm sure a vast majority of you listening to us are, can then plug in and help with this particular call out. On the other side of 2 o'clock in the Parenting Corner today, we are looking at how to navigate supporting your LGBTQIA plus youth. And in navigating conversations around identity as well as personal acceptance. And we're going to be joined by Virginia Magwaza on this conversation, as well as a filmmaker and LGBTQIA plus activist, Dr. Bev Ditsi. And then, of course, we look at the role that fathers play in raising successful young men. I guess the definition of successful is quite the personal one. It differs from individual to individual, but we'll unpack that conversation closer to the time. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp message, you are more than welcome to do so. Let's take a quick break.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. And of course, as we observe Youth Month, this afternoon we thought that we would take a look into the legacy of historical youth movements in South Africa and perhaps explore how past youth activism continues to shape contemporary movements of today. Whether we're talking about the youth of 1976 or just a few short years ago in our memories, the youth of Fees Must Fall. These are important movements, and no doubt there are some shared values in them and shared objectives, as well as probably glaring differences between the movements of yesteryear and today. And so we thought we'd invite to join the conversation Ntsako Kabela, who is a writer and, of course, is a youth and communities development manager at Joburg Theatre, and Mwiketsi Kahela, who is an education and training officer with youth activism at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. Thank you guys so much for coming through. And I guess maybe let me start with you, Mwiketsi. When we look at youth movements of the past, when we're looking at movements like the Soweto Uprising, we know how they've influenced the political landscape in South Africa. And is that still very much sort of part of the DNA of youth movements to have a very tangible impact in the political landscape of the country?
Good afternoon, Bridget and Ntsako and the SAFM team, and of course your listeners. I think certainly yes. I think what we've seen. I mean, so for example, I think we're a country that is known for protesting, right? And I think whenever young people are disgruntled or are aggrieved with something, that's the first thing that we go to, because again, the right to protest, alongside with the freedom of expression and freedom of speech, is one that is guaranteed in our constitution. Mm-hmm. I do think, when it comes to, for example, I don't think we have as many stronger movements after Fees Must Fall that have come from young people. I definitely do think, young people within the climate space have certainly tried to say, this is an issue that we as young people will also affect us, many years to come. And, when you're looking at, for example, in terms of like their reach, in terms of the public imagination, there certainly hasn't been that, primarily because, again, there's been so much suppression, especially when young people take to the streets. As I said earlier on, we're also known as a country to be a capital of protesting, right? Mm. So therefore, the suppressing of protesting, in terms of like, violence, police force, and all those things. So there hasn't really been much gravitas, I would say, in terms of the public imagination. Bridget?
Yeah. And, interesting, the sort of the observation also around the suppression of young voices, which we see quite a bit of, Ntsako. We see it every time young leaders or the youth sort of congregate and move towards mobilizing themselves. There's always a resistance in having their voices heard. And some might say, even last January, for instance, when a new wave of Fees Must Fall protests hit the streets, I remember our colleague at SABC News, Criselda, saying that it almost seems as though government wages a war against young people to keep them quiet and keep them at bay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Bridget, I think one of the key ways in which government keeps young people at bay is this very definition of youth, right? So where they say this is a policy for youth or these are jobs for youth, and we forget that youth is all the way to the age of 35. Which means that, and if you think of any human being between, say, 20 to 35, you're probably where you probably have the least responsibilities in terms of having a husband, a house, etc., etc. Yeah. You have the least financial obligations. And so if you actually had a group of people who would be the most likely to wage any kind of contestations to power, to be able to protest and meaningfully be part of shaping a society, because actually they're the ones who have the most to gain and the most to lose, because they're still so young and have so much to actually gain and live for. It's exactly young people. And this idea of euthanizing people who are young has meant that people feel like when they are old enough, they will participate. And so, I spend a lot of time working with people who are called youth, and I spend a lot of time reminding them that you're older than you think. And it is this country's very biggest trick on young people to have made youth, because what it does is that it effectively it infantilizes people to a much older age. So people will say, no, when I'm old enough, I will. Or they'll say, no, I'm youth, so I still have time. No, I'm a youth, so the government should do for me. And you're saying, no, these old men, it's usually old men who make these policies, have actually played a very big trick on very energetic, powerful people and made them feel less powerful because they feel young, they feel unprepared, they feel they feel as though they must still ask for permission. And I think so, yes, there are instances where you see, fees must fall, where government came out in full force and had guns, and you can see that kind of opposition. But I think the most insidious kind is the one that has infantilized and actually given the most energetic part of our population a permission to say, you don't have to participate because you're young, you're youth, you're almost a child. Until you're 35?
Yeah.
Let's be serious about ourselves, So I think actually our very framing of youth very much because we are Africans, and when people say they're youth, it usually means you're a child, and so the issues of respect, issues of listen to your elders come into play, and so people don't take the stage in the manner in which they should because they feel they have to wait for their turn.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely a great observation and a point. Let's also look at, the ways that contemporary youth movements have drawn inspiration from activism of previous generations. Though there are some very stark differences, there's also quite, a continuance of similarity and issue.
For sure, Bridget. I mean, the continuities will always be there, right? I mean, today, as we're having this conversation, we, as a country, it's the 60th anniversary, actually, of the Rivonia trial, which happened in, I think, 1964 on the 12th of June, right? That is when, Nelson Mandela, Andrew Mlangeni, Alias Motsoaledi, Ahmed Kathrada, Dennis Goldberg, and them, were sentenced to life imprisonment, right? For fighting for this freedom that we're enjoying today. And then, of course, you'd have the 1976 youth uprising that you mentioned earlier on in your introduction. And again, those similarities and continuities, again, you even saw them even during Fees Must Fall, in the sense that, young people, you had young people who were questioning, what the previous generation didn't have the capacity to question.
Yeah.
Right. So the similarities will always be there. Some strategies and tactics will always be there and will always be similar. For example, like protesting, as I said earlier on. However, I do think in 2024, we also as young people need to look at other strategies, that previous movements didn't use. For example, the use of social media. Right. I mean, this was shown to us by our young people, our fellow Africans in Egypt during 2011 in the Arab Spring, right? How social media could be used as a powerful tool to create the social change that we want, whether it is in the climate space, decent work and employment, whether it is addressing inequality, the just transition, for example. So those continuities will always remain. But I think, every generation of young people must always ask themselves, but what are we going to do differently? Right? Yes, Bridget did this during Fees Must Fall. Nsako did this during 1976. But what is going to be different because again, each and every generation, and that's the thing about young people, right? This thing that Toni Morrison talks about, that, the beautiful thing about youth is that it is always insulting in the sense that, it manages generation after generation to triumph, the previous generation. Yeah. Right. So I do think, again, even us as young people, in as much as it's important to take from the past or incorporate what the youth of the past did, but I think it's also important that we also develop new strategies around how we're going to fight for this, equality that we're all striving for.
Absolutely. And as we sort of unpack that a little bit, Ntwako, let's look at perhaps briefly some of the challenges that maybe youth movements of today have faced. And a lot of times people will also talk about how the youth are fractured in objective.
Yeah, I think, so something can seem like a gift to you and end up becoming really problematic. Things like social media and which actually should be things that make it easier for young people to gather, to organize, have created in the algorithms and how they are made to function a lot of very small divisions between people, and the kind of divisions that thrive on making people feel more apart and less together. And I think that has been a big part of the divisions that young people face. And I think maybe young people today have a sense that they don't have to look at things the same way that have been looked at before. And I think things, say, like class, right? Where class issues are increasingly seen as things that COSATU and labor movements deal with, whereas the majority of our youth live within the unemployed and low a class of people who actually have enough social links that should make them work together as opposed to being apart. But then people then feel apart by race or by, oh, this one is a cheese girl and this one is that. I think a lot of young people have to be aware that youth movements have been around for a long time, and so too have people studying them. And they've gotten to be very good at understanding how to beat a movement down and to not fall into those traps that say to you, oh, look, those ones dress like this. Oh, yeah, that person belongs to that group. And actually it creates the illusion of feeling like you are part of something, whereas in fact it just kind of condemns you to being by yourself, kind of clicking away and feeling like you're moving. I think that young people have to go back to embracing being together, actively being together, actively talking, actively engaging and asking questions of each other and of themselves, and not just accepting what they are told by the social media and by the things that come easy. So you have to go, wait, these technologies can make things easier for us, but we have to be critical in how we use them and understand that we use them for our own benefits and our own sake, and to not kind of be chided and to be pulled in by easy rhetoric that says, oh, those are the clever blacks, don't follow them, or oh, those blacks are like this, or oh, people who vote for this party can't be one of you. Where you're going, wait, are you intentionally making us feel more apart? And so the sense of what the movement needs to look like never quite takes shape. And I think young people need to, on their own terms, begin saying, what kind of lives do we want to have? And can we define those before we have them defined by people outside of ourselves who then tell us what to do and how to do it?
Yeah. Let's pause it there for a quick second as we get ready for the headline news. But the conversation does continue on the other side of this as we look at the legacy of historical youth movements and, of course, the impact that they still play in contemporary youth movements and politics, and whether or not there are lessons to be borrowed from the past that can still be carried on onto the future. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to weigh in on WhatsApp. For now, though, it's the news headlines.
Thanks, Bridget, and a very good afternoon. With the news headlines, Gemudupi Makhalemele. The Electoral Court has dismissed the urgent application launched by the MK Party founder Jabulani Khumalo to be reinstated as leader of the party. Health Minister Joe Phaahla says one person has died of the monkeypox disease, with 5 cases reported in the country. And Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has declared a period of mourning for 21 days following the death of the country's Vice President, Saulos Chilima. Details of these and other stories coming up at 2.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Father's Day is just around the corner, and it's the perfect time to show Dad how much you care. With the widest range of gifts from Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Treat him with state-of-the-art gadgets like wireless audio devices so he can jam to his favorite songs. And specialized electrical grooming products to maintain a clean look. Spoil him for choice with a Dis-Chem gift card. Father's Day specials now on until 16 June. Only at Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
Lights, camera, scalpel. Every second counts, and every cut, every thought, every action is critical. Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So as we reflect back on the legacy of historical youth movements, I'm thinking about how 2015 was quite the year of contestation for young people, beginning in March with the Rhodes Must Fall protest. And that was originally directed against a statue at the University of Cape Town, which inevitably then became symbolic, right, I guess, of a shared history. And then obviously in October, later that same year, we then saw the student-led protest, Fees Must Fall, erupting and taking over campuses as well as streets all over the country. And these were really key movements, and I think perhaps Fees Must Fall being the one that's lasted or stood the test of time. That I think is the one movement that all students galvanize towards every single year and are all in agreement that the objective there has not yet been concluded. Then it makes me wonder, what are the other key issues that bring this demographic together? We know education is one, but it's not the only issue that plagues them as a generation within South Africa. Muiketsi?
And you're quite right, Bridget, right? And I think for me, I would maybe perhaps highlight 7, and one of them you've mentioned, and I would say 1, it's decent work and employment. 2, it's quality education. 3, I would say health. 4, I would say gender. We know that gender issues are important, but of course in gender issues, we must also make space and recognize the important contributions also of the LGBTQI plus and other trans, non-binary, gender fluid identities and bodies who live among us and their struggles, right? And the 5th one, I would say climate justice. And, the 6th one, I would say governance related issues. It's so important for young people to participate, especially at a local level, right? And also, I would say arts and culture. My colleague here in Ntsako, is from the arts sector when you were introducing her earlier on. So those, I think, for me, some of the 7 key issues that perhaps we as young people can organize around and just mobilize other young people and conscientize them on and say, you know what, let's agree on these 7 for now. And especially as we go into this government of national unity, right? Let's agree on this 7. Maybe let's develop a youth charter. Let's see how that youth charter would look like. What are the 10 key priorities or 7 key priorities that we can, prioritize in terms of these 7, issues that I've just highlighted for us? And how can we start, hold this government of national unity and the coalitions that are going to come at a provincial and, national level, to account? So how do we hold those leaders who are, who are there to really serve us at the end of the day. How do we hold them accountable as it relates to some of these key issues? But also, Bridget, how do we work collaboratively with them, right? Not only with government leaders, but also with organized business and civil society as well. Because I do think it's important for us as young people not to alienate all these sectors. Because I think oftentimes, as Ntsako said even earlier on, it's important that we do not work in silos, because working in silos at the end of the day is going to lead to more and further divisions. Bridget?
Yeah. Moketsi, as you talk around sort of the 7 pillars that we are now loosely throwing around on the show, I was thinking to myself, I recently had a conversation. We had a conversation here with the producers, and we're talking about youth leaders that have come out of these movements, and and I think at some point we might have even roped you into this conversation. Where do these youth leaders go once they've sort of left the captured environment of campuses? And someone within the political arena at the more mass scale, in political party leadership, then brought up this point to me to say that it's not a lack, for instance, of youth leaders or a lack of objectives and a shared goal for youth. It's that it's easier for youth to galvanize in spaces of their own concentration because they already are organized as a group at a varsity level or a campus level. And so to mobilize them towards a common cause becomes easier. Whereas once they come out of that environment and get into the mainstream, it becomes difficult for them to then find their place. And I think I bring this up to say, because part of the conversation about the legacies of youth movements, right? People will draw juxtapositions to say, yes, but the youth of 1976 then went on to sort of bear these leaders who grew up to be statesmen and captains of industry and are still active in politics today. And where have the youth of Fees Must Fall, where have they gone? Where have those leaders gone? And I find it such a precarious position for some of these youth leaders that are being held to, but where are you now? Moiketsi?
And Bridget, it is a precarious position as you frame it. And it's precarious in the sense that, for example, one of the things, I remember in 2015, I was actually doing my second year adverts and I was actually leading in the SRC. And for me, part of where are they now is that no one also followed up on those leaders and found out, but how are you doing, Bridget? How are you doing in South? Many of those young leaders are dealing with trauma. And in fact, Bridget, as you were alluding earlier on that, 2015 was a year of contestation. Next year in 2025, it will be the 10th-year anniversary, 10-year anniversary of the Fees Must Fall movement, right? And I remember this year, in fact, at the Human Rights Festival at Cornhill, I had invited to form part of a panel Ukanya Tsegeshe, right, who was a Fees Must Fall leader who was arrested, really went through and arrested for a long time, right? Went through a dark period. When you listen to Kanya's story, and it's not mine to tell, but again, just to say, many of those young leaders who led, and even the 1976 generation, the ones who are leading us right now, even in parliaments, they're also dealing with their own trauma. I think one of the things that, and I think, we are living in times where now we can talk about mental health. We also don't talk about the mental health of leaders themselves. It's like, and that is why for me, I always tell the young people that, listen, there are different ways to be an activist. Not all of us belong in the streets, right? Yes, it's important to protest. It's important to bend those tires. Of course, we must do it within the confines of the law. There are also leaders who must. There are also leaders like Bridget who must lead us in the media space, who must post on social media. There are leaders like Ntsako who will say, you know what, guys, I will create a play out of this struggle that we are facing so that we can get it out there, right? I will write on this. I will sing about this. Your Miriam Makebas of the world who left and said, you know what, guys, I will lead internationally. I will make sure that the United Nations and other countries that book me as an artist, they know about the lived experiences of, Black people in apartheid South Africa. So I also think for me, to answer the question of what has happened, we must also say, but are they okay? We must also check up on those leaders. And I know it may sound very iffy, whatever. Like, I think it's also important to check up on the people who are leading us, the people who we've put in the front, and even those in the background, right, who are also doing important work, right? In this case, your producers. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That is a good point indeed. And I think you've just put a nugget for most South Africans because we've never looked at it from that perspective. Nsako, let me let you have the last bite in a minute or less. The role, as Muketsi segues us into it, the role that arts and culture and literature have to play in upholding youth struggles and in telling the stories of this generation.
Oh, artists are completely haven't yet fully come to the show, but I do think that artists have this really important role, yes, of speaking truth to power, but also of speaking life to people. And I think that it is people who see themselves as alive and as meaningful and as worthy who are able to fight in struggles, because you cannot fight for a future if you yourself do not see a future. So I see a lot of artists' responsibility that we haven't fully taken this on and have to, is that yes, we speak truth to power, but we must really speak life to our people in ways that are far more meaningful than what we're doing currently.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for your time as well as your insight. As always, that was Nsako Mkabela, who is a writer and youth and communities development manager at Joburg Theatre, and of course Muketsi Kwahela, who is an education and training officer with youth activism at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. It's just gone 22 at 2 o'clock. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come right back and get into Made in SA.
Made in SA with Bridget Masinga.
And my team said, no pause for you. It is Made in SA as we catch up with Tanele Zwane, who's the founder of Subtlety Designs and crochet designer. And of course, Tanele is making a name for herself and her craft and becoming more recognized in the fashion industry for her sustainable fashion brand. And recently just announced as one of Woolworth's Youth Makers competition for 2024. How are you doing, Tanele? You good?
I'm doing good, Bridget. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored.
Oh, what incredible designs. You know what? It's a little yesteryear. It's a little nostalgic, but it also has a wonderful modern contemporary touch to it. I'm on your social media page and I'm looking at your designs. Tell me the inspiration behind your work.
Oh, thank you so much. I like that you mentioned that there's a sense of nostalgia to it because, even crocheting itself, most people would associate it with something Abogogo would do, back in the day. So it's one of those things where I'm trying to recreate this craft as something that's modern and fun, and, ready to wear, So I like that. What really inspires me is, nature. I'm really inspired by different African landscapes, color palettes and even the botanical parts of it. I try to translate that in the colors and the stitches and even the silhouettes that I create for some of my designs.
Where did the love of crocheting come from? I mean, I know you're going to tell me something about Ukoko at this point. Please tell me something about Ukoko.
So basically, I take it back to 2016. I was studying fashion design at the Tshwane University of Technology.
Yeah.
And my textile lecturer said, hey guys, you need a side hustle while you study. Mm-hmm. So pick up a ball of yarn, grab some, knitting needles and hooks and figure something out, see what you can do. So that day I went to the library on campus. And I just watched a short YouTube video on how to make a purse, and I crocheted it in maybe 40 minutes. Mm. And the next day, when I showcased it to my lecturer, she said, you could make a lot of money just from this kind of bag, $600.
Yeah.
That's how much you could sell for this kind of bag. And that's exactly what I did. I just started making bags, making money on the side, and selling them to friends and family. And literally throughout my studies, I just developed my craft, got better skills, and improved on my stitch work to the point where I was now ready to showcase a collection in my final year.
I can't believe there was no grandparent involved.
No, that's the thing. She was there in the background, but I was just too young to understand what she was doing. I'm just like, she makes these beanies and scarves. I'm not quite sure. But now it's like a full circle moment where I'm like, I should have paid more attention back then. But I think it's just up to me to now carry on in some way.
Absolutely. But I'm also loving that globally there is a sort of a gravitation towards these almost forgotten skills, right? These skills of the grandparents. Because in fashion particularly, I'm thinking I've been seeing a lot of designers and a lot of brands infusing more crocheted work into what they do. There must be a lot of excitement as well from the market here in South Africa. I mean, you're part now of the Woolies Youth Makers competition for 2024.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I have been seeing that crochet trend, and I've gladly hopped on the train, and I don't plan on getting off of it anytime soon. But I think, taking it back to South Africa, I've definitely seen the rise of that trend and the craft. And it's really nice how, the same craft can be interpreted in many ways. When it comes to how people associate crochet with it, like, festive time, when it's summertime, let's go out in the bikinis and matching sets. But my approach is more like taking it to retail. Let's make it an everyday wear. Now here in Sebenzini, there's a crochet outfit you can wear when you go to a special occasion. You don't have to always go to maybe the traditional clothes. Try something that's handmade, that's knitted or crocheted, So I think it's a thing of, let's try and make this an everyday, wardrobe staple for everybody, for all the locals.
And how are you sort of, as you build the brand and look into the future, as you cast your eye into the future, how are you hoping to incorporate more sort of sustainability into the work that you do?
So in my case, it's more about the trade, the fair trade, having artisans that are paid well, that can sustain themselves, because that's something I picked up when I was learning the craft in varsity, to say it's empowering to know I have this skill that can help me make money. And the thing is, it's a craft that it's a craft of labor and passion, but it also needs to be priced correctly. I think we've seen from fast fashion how they try to copy the same craft, and it's, the labor costs are so low, it's not sustainable for anyone to live on. So I would like to take that approach, in being able to find artisans that can carry on the craft, but also be able to live comfortably making this, craft something that's long-standing and sustainable. So I take a more trade approach. Not sustainable in the sense that it's cotton. I don't use synthetic yarns, but also having that encouragement to use locally made yarns that are produced here in South Africa or Africa in general. That's also the approach I like to take with it.
Yeah. I now challenge you, because as I'm talking to you and looking at Sustainable Tea's digital footprint via Instagram, I'm now going to challenge you. I love it when generations sort of find each other. I'm going to challenge you to try and find out, as part of the research moving forward, who would be regarded as the master crocheter, of a past generation. And for you to come in conversation through your hands and your work for transference of that mastery of skill, because you are incredible. And I say this because I'm reminded of Ukoko Beauty out in the KZN, who is a master, Koko Beauty Ngongo, who is a master basket weaver. And many textile designers have sat at her footsteps just to learn the skill of basket weaving at her level. And they've interpreted it in so many products, from furniture, you can name it. And I'm just thinking there must be a master crocheter out there that you can sit at their feet and exchange that knowledge.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I'm definitely someone who's still a student of the craft, and I know there are so many people out there who are masters, way better than me with it. And it would definitely be a wonderful challenge I would gladly take on, and it would be lovely to see on Subtlety Designs that, hey, we've actually found, our golden master crocheter, and, to learn from someone like that, because something I also really appreciate is that I want to pass down, stitches that maybe are not familiar anymore or people don't use as much. So there's something quite powerful about preserving all the knowledge that I've acquired so far, but that I'm still yet to acquire and learn from other masters of the craft, for sure.
I love a creative who takes it in her good stride and takes up the challenge. So next time we speak, you're going to be giving me an update. That was Tanele Zwane, who is the founder of Subtle Tea Designs. You can find them on Instagram, by the way. Subtle Tea Designs is where you go. She's got lots of videos for you to see the process as well as to see the work up close and personal. And there's some interesting contemporary designs, as you heard her say. You can wear, crocheted knitwear on a day-to-day, and her page proves exactly that. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock as we wrap up Made in SA. It's time for us now to get into Kids Corner, which should run us to the top of the hour, and then Madupi is coming through with your 2 o'clock news.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30, #Youth Month. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonaka Malias. I'm 10 years old. I live at Middleland Zone 7 and my school is Tumbezo Primary. I'm here to talk about the importance of keeping your feet warm during winter. Yes, I do think it is important to keep my feet warm because the cold goes through feet to the body. No, I do not prefer walking around the house with my bare foot. I always wearing warm socks and slippers every day. Yes, I think I can get ill if I do not keep my feet warm. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ndamune and my son name is Nemtaun. I'm 10 years old and I'm in grade 5. Yes, it is important to keep your feet warm to stay healthy. I think it helps to prevent colds and keeps me comfortable. I prefer wearing slippers in the house, and it's winter now and you know that you can be cold or shivering when you didn't keep your feet warm, your hands and your whole body. Now that it's winter season, I could keep my feet warm by wearing socks, shoes and not walking around barefoot. If you don't keep your feet warm, you might feel cold and you might have a flu because you didn't keep your feet warm and you are walking around barefoot.
Hello, my name is Mchit Mapet. I'm 11 years old. I'm in grade 6. I think it is important to keep my feet warm because you can catch a cold by walking barefoot. I prefer walking around the house with my shoes on because I could catch a cold which I need to go to the hospital to get some medicine. Now that it is winter season, I can keep my feet warm by wearing socks and shoes and not walking barefoot. I think if you don't keep your feet warm, you could catch a cold which will catch for a really long time because the floor is really cold. And when you have cold, you won't be able to play with your friends or go anywhere. You'll be sleeping in the bed every time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mbalentle. I always make sure that I have shoes on. I make sure I am warm by wearing gowns and having blankets wrapped around me. Yes, I do know it can be dangerous for your health. It can be very dangerous because the germs on the floor get into your feet. Also, the coldness of the floor can make you very sick.
Hello everyone, I'm Wishfika Talib. I absolutely cannot last without socks or shoes in this weather. The towels are way too cold for that. Those prodigy kids with heated towels are so lucky. It probably feels like they're walking on warm toast. Especially since most of us are at school early in the morning. How do we keep warm? What I do is I layer my clothes so I can stay warmer longer. And trust me, it really helps. In a hot water bottle or something just makes it even better. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Kabamba. I never walk barefoot on cold floors. I always make sure I have shoes or at least socks on. During this cold weather, to keep myself warm, I would mostly stay indoors, wear warm and make sure I have my blankets with me. I am aware that walking barefoot on cold floors could be dangerous for you, mainly because the floor could be dirty and then walking on a cold, dirty floor would lead to bacteria getting on you and making you sick.
Hello, my name is Monet Inchman. I'm in grade 7, I'm 12 years old and I live in Gauteng. Yes, it is cold now. Sometimes I do walk with my socks on and no shoes on cold floors. I also make sure that I have shoes on sometimes. How I do keep myself warm during this cold weather is that I wear socks that are like comfortable and very warm. Wear long sleeve t-shirts and jerseys, jackets and clothes that keep me warm, and also have a blanket with me or hot water bottle with me that will just keep me warm during winter. Yes, I do know that walking on cold floors with barefoot can be dangerous to your health. You can get injured while walking with barefoot. You can get poked by something, maybe a glass or a nail. So let us be careful and not walk with barefoot. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Hello there! Today let's talk about the importance of keeping your feet nice and warm, especially during these chilly months. Did you know that your feet play a crucial role in regulating your body temperature? If they get too cold, it can make your whole body feel chilly. So ensuring that your feet are warm not only keeps you comfortable, but also helps prevent you from getting sick. Plus, when your feet are warm, you can move around and play without feeling uncomfortable or cold. Now, how can you keep your feet warm during winter? One simple trick is to wear cozy socks. Opt for wool or thermal socks as they are excellent at trapping the heat and keeping your feet warm. If you're heading outside, wearing boots can make a big difference. They are designed to shield your feet from cold, wet, and windy conditions. Just make sure your boots are waterproof and have a good lining to keep the cold out if it's raining. When you're at home, sleep into some comfy sleepers or house shoes to keep your feet warm. They are soft and perfect for indoor wear. You can also use a warm blanket or a hot water bottle to give your feet a cozy boost when you're sitting or laying down. Sometimes just snuggling up with a blanket can make a world of difference in how warm your feet feel. Moreover, staying active is another fantastic way to keep your feet warm. When you move around, your body generates heat, which helps warm up your feet. Jumping, running, or dancing are all fun activities that can do the trick. If you're indoors, a little exercise can keep the cold at bay. Taking care of your precious feet by keeping them warm contributes to your overall health and happiness. Stay warm and keep awesome.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. The National Pulse on SAFM.
And the big question from a SADC region issue is food security post-2025. Where are we at with those sort of deadlines?
We still have a long way to go, Ashraf, I should say. We, as a continent, we've set very steep targets for ourselves. And from the work that we've been doing and the support we've been giving to our member states, we recognize that there's still a lot of work to do. And we are already currently looking at how we can proceed in the next 10 years. So as we speak, we are in the process of defining a 10-year strategy for the continent to pursue the targets that we've set ourselves for the continent.
Let's leave it at that, Dr. Manyewu Muchamba, the acting head of the Agriculture, the African Union Development Agency.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme, Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30. #Youth Month.
The top stories at 2 o'clock. Khumalo's application dismissed and Malawi declares a period of mourning. A very good afternoon. The Electoral Court has dismissed the urgent application by MK Party founder Jabulani Khumalo to be reinstated as leader of the party. He last week launched an urgent application before the specialist court. Khumalo was expelled from the party and removed as its leader earlier this year. Zoleka Kotashi reports.
The specialist court has found that Khumalo does not have the locus standi to bring the urgent application before the court because he was expelled. The court noted that Khumalo has not challenged his expulsion. The court held that Khumalo is not impugning this decision and therefore his expulsion stands. The court adds that only members of a political party may approach the court for relief for breach of that political party's constitution, and that because Khumalo is no longer a member of the MK party, he cannot seek relief in relation to breach of its constitution, and therefore lacks standing to seek relief against the commission in relation to the leadership of the party. Zoleka Kodashe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Health Minister Joe Phaahla says one person has died of the monkeypox disease with 5 cases reported in the country. 3 are in KZN and 2 in Gauteng. Newborn babies and pregnant women are at high risk. Phaahla says the illness can be severe, leading to complications and even death in some people. He briefed the media in Pretoria on the outbreak.
The death that occurred is amongst the 2 cases in Gauteng. This patient passed away late on Monday this week, Monday the 10th of June in Tembisa Hospital. All cases and all the patients are males aged between 30 and 39 years without any travel history to other countries which are experiencing outbreaks. So this then says to us that we do have local transmission.
1 person has died and 2 others are seriously injured following an explosion at a factory in Bokomo Way in Malmesbury in the Swartland. Municipal spokesperson Mart Marie Hasbroek says the explosion occurred at a loading zone where raw material gets offloaded. She says minimal damage was caused by the fire and operations are continuing. Hasbroek says that the circumstances surrounding the incident are being investigated. Firefighters are still battling a blaze at an Eskom substation in Zola, Soweto. Eskom says several areas, including Zola, Dobsonville, Mdeni, Jabulani, and Muletsane, are without electricity. It's believed that the fire started at around 9 a.m. after residents heard a loud explosion. Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Mulaudzi.
City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services firefighters are currently attending to a substation on fire in Zola. At this stage, there are no injuries which have been reported, and also the cause of the fire is still a subject of investigations.
And Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has declared a period of mourning for 21 days following the death of the country's Vice President, Saulos Chilima. Chilima and 9 passengers perished in an aircraft crash on Monday after it disappeared from radar during a domestic flight. Kayelihle Khumalo reports.
The body of the late Vice President of Malawi, Dr. Saulos Chilima, has arrived in the capital Lilongwe. Funeral arrangements are underway for the burial of Chilima and others who died in the helicopter crash. Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has described his late deputy as a good patriot, a formidable man, and saying his death is a terrible tragedy. Meanwhile, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says this is a moment of tragedy which were united with the people of Malawi as they mourn the passing of a youthful leader who advanced the aspirations of his country and of the youthful continent from his position in Malawi's presidency. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The top story at 2 o'clock, the Electoral Court has dismissed the urgent application by MK Party founder Jabulani Khumalo to be reinstated as leader of the party. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Mama Kite, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megaliters of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Kolokoti sa makileng 340. Yo, give out. I think the cost at 340. I didn't have to so like Pradaya Karui, yo. Young Shaya, yo.
It is a 340 mil with shotgun, bringing us to 10 past 2 o'clock on the full circle. And of course, this hour we're looking at, it is our parenting corner because it is a Wednesday. And in light of it being, of course, LGBTQIA plus month, we thought that we would focus on issues around navigating how to support young people in the family who do identify as LGBTQIA plus, or perhaps who are on the journey, on the journey to cluing you in. I wanted to use the word, and Bev, when you were here last week, I said that there are some words that I struggle with because from my lens, it almost seems like it still somehow makes me feel as a heteronormative person that I'm othering human beings, right? So I'm struggling to find the right words to frame around a young person in the family who could be on a journey to coming out. Because then my mind goes, as a heteronormative, I don't come out. And so the right way of saying or articulating that journey for somebody else is where my struggle is as we embark on this conversation today. And I'm joined in conversation with filmmaker and LGBTQIA plus activist Bev Ditsi is joining me, and Virginia Magwaza, who's the founder and managing director of Parents, Families and Friends of South African Queers. And let me start with you, Virginia. You heard my struggle. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, thank you, Bridget. And how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Yes, let's start there because it is a personal journey, personal to the individual. It's one's own personal story. And as family members and as community who are then trying to be supportive and to be conscious and to be aware, the first sort of points that we should be considering in our languaging and also in how our languaging then translates into the actionable.
Yes. So as parents, we always have those expectations that if you have a child, these are your expectations in terms of what the child is going to turn out to be. Precisely because of the stereotypes of the society, that a child must be either a boy or a girl or a man or a woman. And when a child then happens to be not what you are expected to, there are always frustrations. And some parents will then not know how to deal with that situation. Some parents will then push their child to say, what's happening with you? Why? I have not seen you with a girlfriend. When am I getting grandchildren? And that action on its own then makes children to keep into themselves and not open up to their parents in terms of what is it they're going through, because the questioning process that you mentioned it as a journey, it's a very serious and hard process where you are questioning your sexuality. And precisely because in this society, if your sexuality is not heterosexual, then you need to be strong to face the society because you are seen as going against the societal norms.
And how do we get around, because a large part of our conversation is helping parents and family by extension better support and be there for the younger members in the family, the children, the adolescents that are on their journey. How do we then work around the conversation of framing and the conversation of languaging, right? So that we are a little bit more conscious and we are empathetically clued in to what is happening internally in this child's life right now, without maybe unconsciously creating some kind of negativity or projecting some kind of bias.
Yeah, that's very complex. I mean, parenting is hard, Bridget. I don't know whether you're a parent. I'm a parent.
Not.
I know that there's no manual that comes with parenting, and it's something that you learn along the way, right? But so the work that we do in PSEC is trying to get the parents that we come across with to learn on how to support their children when they are going through that stage of whether they are questioning or already they have realized that this is who they are. And the best thing as a parent is to make sure that you gain the trust. You must gain your child's trust so that they can be able to open up. And also avoid imposing what you want them to go about with in this journey. You need to listen to the child or to your child. You need to pledge your love and support for them, so that they can be able to, even if they find other challenges outside, they know that they have a shoulder to cry on. Because I always make an example with Bev. Bev, when she came out as a lesbian in Soweto, she was the only lesbian.
Yeah.
But it was easy for her because her parents were there, her family was there to give her support. Even if she was facing homophobia in the streets, she knew that this is the only place where I'm uncomfortable, which is outside the home. But when I get home, my mom is there, my sister is there, my grandmother is there to give me that support. And that support gave her strength and made her who she is today.
Absolutely. It is LGBTQ IA plus month, Pride Month, as it's known. And of course, this month we are dipping in with our rainbow community as we honor and celebrate the diversity that makes us so incredibly unique as South Africans, but also the things that we all have in common. And part of the conversation that we thought we'd have this month, because it's also simultaneously Youth Month, is this conversation around supporting and helping your children navigate their life's journey and navigate issues around sexual orientation and identity. And if you are on this journey with a member of your family, or you have been on the journey with a member of your family and you'd love to share, you're more than welcome to do so. Our lines are open on 086 000 2032 or 061 410 4107. That is our WhatsApp line. And of course, you can remain anonymous if you choose to do so, or you can share all your particulars. That's also okay. And that's the I guess the other part of this conversation is families. You talk about the expectations that parents have for their children and sort of their own vision and dreams that they have as parents. And in this era of parenting, you find that it's still very much an emotional conversation when you ask parents, how would you deal or how would you handle should the child that you so desperately want come out to you and say, Mom and Dad, I'm queer? And I found and I said I don't have kids, right? But when I've posed that question to friends and other people who have or don't have children, people in community and outside of the queer community, 9 out of 10 times there's always a pause as people go, I never thought about it and I'm going to need to think about it because actually I don't know what I would do, or I don't know what I would say or how I would handle it. And I found that honesty refreshing.
Yeah, it is. It is precisely because, being queer is seen as something that's not normal. But and that's one of the things that we are fighting for, to normalize it. Because then parents, the reason why there's that pause is that people did not, and some are hoping that it shouldn't happen to me, right? I've spoken to activists, social justice activists, who say, I understand that it is people's rights to be queer, but I hope it doesn't happen in my house. As if it's a plague or it's something that is a disease, but you are willing to support someone outside your home, but it does not have to happen in your house. However, we need to be very cognizant of the fact that the young ones now are coming out even earlier than us, myself and Bev. I mean, we are the veterans of the community, but it took a lot of time or a lot for us to come out as queer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were struggling to get Bev on the line, and I'm not too sure if she's on the line with us now.
She's now on Zoom.
How are you doing this afternoon, Bev?
You are muted, Bev.
Oh, is she muted?
Yes, she's muted.
Okay, well, whilst we wait for her to mute, let's also talk about then. Then that door is now open for mom and dad or whoever the trusted family member is. And the young family member comes to you, the young one comes to you in the family and shares that, I feel and I think that this is who I am. That safety space, how do we create that safety space? How do we create that safety space in an environment that might be unfamiliar for most parents?
Yeah, I think it also starts even before the child comes out or your child comes out to you, by making this a normal thing. There are children who decide not to come out to their parents precisely because when a queer couple come up on TV, there are negative comments. And that takes away the safety that you are talking about, Bridget, because if my parents are saying, these ones are demons, I am not going to come out to them because I don't want to be regarded as a demon. And then secondly, I think parents need to apply the listening part, the listening skill, because some parents always take it as if it's the attack to their personal being when a child says, I'm queer. And they think about the church, they think about the neighbors, they think about the extended family. And there was a queer person who told us that she came out to her mother, and her mother was like, "Oh, no, I support you. Please tell me how to go about supporting you."
Yeah.
However, whenever they have to go to extended families, when there's a ceremony or events, and then the mother will say, I support you, but please, if we go to meet other people from the family, can you wear a dress? And this is a masculine presenting person who is comfortable in clothes that are not feminine. Now, it's no longer about the child. It's about you as a parent.
Yeah.
You are now... Hi, Bev.
Oh, don't worry. They're trying to... Apparently, she's muted and my team is trying to communicate with her offline. Yes. So you were saying, yes.
Yeah. So then it's no longer about the child. It's about you. It's about how you want to be seen by the family, and that only translates to a point that translates that you see this as something negative and as a failure in your part as a parent, and as your child having failed you because your child does not subscribe to the heteronormative that exists in the society. And the sad thing with that is that if you continue like that as a parent, you are pushing your child to abuse substance, you are pushing your child to developmental issues, and which might lead to suicide.
Yeah.
So parents should at least have a decency to learn that when a child comes out to you, it's not for you to go to the closet, because closet is dark with the clothes. And we are trying, all of us, to come out of the closets.
Right. That right there was the phrasing that my tongue was struggling with earlier on in our conversation. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. As we have this conversation on the back of it being LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, and of course it is Youth Month, and we thought that we'd invite our guests to come and help you if you are a parent, because it is Wednesday and it is the Parenting Corner, and we're talking around helping support your children through their journey and helping them navigate through the journey of self-identity, which can be a daunting one. We were struggling to get Bev on the line. It's an indication, Uguti, you know, the Honorable Doctor here, Bev Ditsi, is of a different generation to Generation X and Y.
Please, don't do that. Do this for the team.
Oh, that is funny, Bridget. Hello, everybody.
How are you doing?
Hi, Bev.
We thank you for finally
well,
muting.
thank you.
Oh, we thank you for finally muting there, comrade. We appreciate it. Let's talk.
I couldn't find the button. Please forgive me.
No, we forgive you. We forgive you, Bev. I think our last conversation, we kind of touched on this a little bit, right? Around the journey, and we've been talking about it with Virginia, the journey that young children go through, you know, at certain stages, and the struggles that they might face, or the challenges that they might face in figuring out their identity and their being. And let's talk about the uniqueness of that, because, you know, Virginia and I didn't talk about her personal journey, but for you, you know, I think for most of your life, you have been living lesbian, queer, and proud. And what was that like as a young Bev in Soweto, trying to compartmentalize all these thoughts and emotions that you were going through at the time?
It was very, very confusing. I have been listening to you and VG, and, you know, even my own very loving folks, we would watch, you know, I mean, we didn't see many queer people, not even on our TV screens. And growing up in the 80s, many of us didn't even have a TV. But there was one time. Yes, there was one time where, you know, we saw a very flamboyant, effeminate man. And my mom turned and said, "Oh, grass." And that's a word that was used for whenever you are gender ambiguous, when nobody could feel.
Bev?
Hello?
Yes, there you are. You're back. Yes, gender ambiguous. Oh, there's something going on with the connection. Maybe let's try a different line in the meantime, because Bev, are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, there we go. Yes, there you go. So you were saying if you were gender ambiguous.
If you were gender ambiguous, there's a word, and it was called trasi, and that's what my mom said. And I remember the way she said it was with intrigue and interest rather than revulsion. And I remember I was so interested in this person that I thought, wow, who are you? They look magical. Queer people have always looked like magical unicorns,
Awesome.
even when we didn't have the words. And then growing up and not knowing this word, gay, lesbian, I've just always been me, but it's always been so confusing because nobody around me looked like me, spoke like me. You know, there was no one around like me. And so by the time I did actually use the word, only then did I get that reaction, the really hard, what the hell is this? Where do you get this? We must take you to Sangomas because this is wrong. Which is very interesting because I believe that our parents have always known who we are. You can see your very effeminate, your very masculine-leaning child. You can see that your child is different. It's only when words are being used now all of a sudden where, oh, no, we cannot use those words. And that is sad. But I was very confused until I found those words, Bridget.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause here for the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side of this. 086 000 2032 and 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30. #Youth Month.
Founder Jabulani Khumalo to be reinstated as leader of the party. Health Minister Joe Phaahla says one person has died of the monkeypox disease, with 5 cases reported in the country. And the Kuwaiti Interior Minister says at least 41 people have been killed in a fire in a residential building in the city of Mangafa. Details of these and other stories, 3 o'clock.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with our guest this afternoon, Bev Ditsi, and of course Virginia Magwaza, as we talk around helping our adolescents navigate their way through. Okay, we are having technical difficulties there with the Bev's line, and we are trying desperately to find a different line. We'll see if we manage to get her. If we don't, we'll just continue, Virginia and I. And Virginia, Bev brings up this point of once you've called, to sort of borrow from Maya Angelou, once you've called a thing, right? Once you've put some kind of name to your journey, to your identity. I wonder if that sort of point of, I'm going to use the word shock for lack of a better word. If that point of shock for parents, if you already have an inclination, as she says, you see your child, you know your child, you can sense your child, who they are. And so once that sort of labeling or naming is then brought into the conversation, I almost feel like it kicks in that emotion of denial from parents. That emotion.
But the denial is always there, Bridge.
Is it always
there?
Then
the shock then becomes very strong when then they realize now you have a name of this thing that they've been suspecting. Because when they observe you and they're like, maybe I'm wrong, or it's a phase, it will go out. But as soon as you put a name on it, whoa, they even know what they are going through. Then that means it's there. That's where the shock comes from.
Sure. And then, when you're growing up, when you're an adolescent, there's so many things you're dealing with. Just being an adolescent, so many social dynamics that are changing in your world. And then I can imagine.
Especially in the country like
Sorry?
Especially in the country like South Africa.
Absolutely.
Where you are also have,
Absolutely.
You also have to be scared about where you are going and moving around in terms of safety, in terms of the viciousness of the men out there. It's a lot. And then now you find that you are queer, and that's why we are encouraging parents to realize that there are a lot of stresses out there. Home should be a place where we all find love and support.
Yeah.
Because that will make it to deal with all the stresses.
Absolutely. And then how does one navigate conversations around, because parents already innately, especially our African parents, when you reach the stage, they almost want to disattach from conversations around sexuality, around relationships. They want to bury their heads in the sand and almost pretend as though this is not a natural state of being. the state of sexual curiosity, the stage of being infatuated with boys and girls. And then here you are with a queer adolescent in the household. How do you find that sort of common bridge, and how do you maintain that safety in order to keep that connection so that you can be part of the journey, and considering the also unique dynamics of that journey, like you said, to be queer and to be black in South Africa adds its own challenges and its own set of burdens on just your being.
Exactly. And you know, what you are asking is very important, Bridget, because what our parents do, they use the church as the place that will deal with those issues that you are talking about. They will push you to go to church, hoping that the church will correct you, church will give you the right things to know and the right things to consider as you go through that journey. They avoid and make sure that they don't sit with you and tell you what exactly is happening. And even if they do, it's either it's in shouting or it's in passing. Like my mother used to say, but I don't know. I didn't know what did she mean, because I am just a young person that is trying to navigate life. And the fact that parents pushes us to the church, then it becomes a situation where then we grow up resenting church, because also you'll be sitting in church and your pastor will be saying gays and lesbians are Western animals.
Yeah.
And you find that then even this place is not yours.
Yeah. I just got a message here, Virginia, and we've given up on Bev's line because it's terrible. We'll try maybe on a different day for a different conversation. The networks are not playing ball with us today. But we just got a message that says, I used to be ignorant, even slightly homophobic. But now I've just picked up that my son, who's 9 years old, is showing signs that have hit home. His gestures, and he likes playing with dolls. And I've told his mom that we must embrace and enlighten ourselves about it. And this is from Tsidiso out in Bloemfontein. And I had a friend who, one of my best friends, who's an activist, in the GBV space. And I remember her saying to me, her son, who was of a similar age, 7, 8, and even younger, at 5, she started saying to me, my son is queer. And me as the aunt who thinks I'm an ally, I was, how do you know? And then she goes, no, I can see. I know my son. My son is queer. And I was like, oh, okay. But let's wait for him to give us the languaging or ask the questions. And I don't know if we were right or wrong in our approach. But I love what Tsidiso is saying here, that, you know what? I can see my son is queer, and I need to enlighten myself.
We really commend parents like Tsidiso, because especially dads, when you started reading, I thought this was the mother. But when as you come to the message, it's the dad. We don't have many dads even in our organization with the parents that we work with. And I think it's the right way that before he tells us, if we have an opportunity, let's enlighten ourselves. So that when they come and tell us, we at least have a clue of what is happening and what is going on. And then the best thing also is to ask the child, how would you like us to support you? Mm-hmm. Because we cannot put a blanket approach on how support should be, because also queerness, it differs. It's different from one person to another, and also how people discover themselves of who they are. Mm-hmm. So I really commend. I hope that I will be able to get him to join our activities when we come to Bloemfontein. I think we'll be there next month.
Lovely. Tsidiso, keep an eye out for, of course, Virginia Magwaza. And Virginia, let's also, because it's 6, 7, 5, 4, when maybe some children are already comfortable in their being and the space they grow up in is safe enough and secure enough for them to just be themselves. Is it the right approach for mom and dad or whoever it is in the family to then wait for the child to be the one who prompts the questions versus leading with it yourself?
It's the right approach to wait until the child tells you. However, you must amplify love to the child. What you need to give the child is more love, more than before, so that it makes it easier for them to speak to you, to say, Mom, this is what I'm going through. Because that's why in the acronym LGBTIAAQQ, we have the second Q, which is the questioning, because they are still trying to find themselves. They are still trying to make sense of what they are feeling inside, because it does not just come and then you decide, oh, actually, I'm gay. Sometimes it comes and you are asking yourself, and some people are actually fighting it. There are queer people who fight queerness within, because they are also scared of being part of this minority that is facing so much discrimination and hate and violence. So it is important that as a parent, you wait until your child tells you that this is what I'm going through and this is how I feel. And then you ask, how can I support you? And then they let you know this is how you can support. And that's why also part of the work that we do in our organization is to also try to contribute towards the work that is being done in changing schools to become inclusive. Because then if a child is 9, that child goes to school. We had a case of a young masculine presenting girl had to change her appearance and acted as if she was a boy so that she can be safe. And until we raise that, it is dangerous. But you need to be able to talk to your school. You need to be able to talk to the leaders of the school to say there is this possibility, and that's how we are also advocating for gender-neutral toilets, because then she was going into boys' toilets, and as soon as they discover that actually you are not a boy, they might even experience violence.
Absolutely. Just as we wrap it up, maybe some questions, I don't know, with the work that you do with parents and families, any questions jumping on what Sidiso is saying about he and his wife having to embrace and enlighten themselves, even if your child is not showing or identifying, or there's no hint that your child is part of this incredible rainbow community, but just as an enlightened individual, because in most of our homes there is somebody who's going to be queer. In the circles
or a friend of your child,
or the friend of your friend's child or something. What kind of conversations should we be having just with ourselves as society to say, wait a minute, let me just examine this. If my child was queer, what does that mean to me? Or how does that change the balance of my life, if at all? Should we be having those conversations with ourselves internally?
Yes, we should. We should, even with our partners, even with our peers, because some people have that understanding that is old age, where people feel that people like us, queer people, we need to be eliminated from the earth. However, if we continue as peers and as parents, we talk about this thing and normalize the fact that queer people are in existence, and whether we like it or not, they are even in countries where the laws are not accepting. It does not mean that they are not there. Even in Uganda, there are so many queer people where there is an anti-homosexuality law everywhere in the world. So we need to begin to normalize it. And it also goes back to the fact that we need to understand that gender, it's actually not from a male and female. It's a spectrum. There are a lot of other genders in between. If you can understand that, it would make it easy for us to accept those that come out to us to be queer.
Absolutely. Virginia, thank you so much. I said to Bev last week, and I'm forgetting my other guest now, that it's very important. Peace. Yes, it was peace. Peace with. It's very important for us to have these conversations, and I think very important for us from the perspective of, like Tsidiso, just enlightening ourselves and continuously learning and challenging our own sense of being in relation to other human beings on this planet. And so I always want to say I appreciate the time, and more than that, I appreciate your patience as a community in allowing me to also process my thoughts live in conversation with y'all, and having the emotional capacity to hold space even for my discomforts as you hear them in my words, trying to navigate a safe conversation and a secure conversation for all involved.
We appreciate people like you, Bridget, who are allies, who see these discussions very important. And, as allies, we all grow and learn in this whole process because it's not static. In previous years, we only knew lesbian and gays. Yeah. And now they are trans, and then research has shown us that they are also intersex people. And we need to also embrace ourselves with that knowledge, because intersex issues are serious and people are affected and their lives are affected out there.
Absolutely.
I would like to also say that you can check us on our social medias, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok as well, and as PFSAQ, Parents, Families and Friends of South African Youth.
Thank you so much, Virginia. That was Virginia Magwaza in conversation with us. And of course, the connection led us down today with Honorable Dr. Bev Ditsi. But Bev is a regular on the show. Wherever I go, she goes. So she'll pop in from time to time. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back and wrap it up.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30. #Youth Month. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Right? Ashraf is in the building. How are you today?
Yeah, pretty well.
Men in Black.
Men in Black, yeah.
Love to see it. What's coming up?
Well, the Men in Black rules, not me. Okay, the Electoral Court has dismissed Jabulani Khumalo's application to remove Jacob Zuma as the party leader of MK. That story continues, so we'll have analysis coming up first up.
So he's not going to Parliament on Friday?
Well,
he said he'll
Parliament has ruled him out, but this is that's like a Parliament in its own right, and it's fascinating. They should go into extra time or have a penalty shootout or something like that. We'll also speak to the EFF about their position on the government of national unity. Then there's an IFP press conference at 5 o'clock. The speculation is that a deal has been made between the IFP on the one hand as the kingmakers, ANC, DA and one other party, so that's all with KZN, right? But we also hear that the MK are talking to the IFP now. So anyway, there's a press conference at 5. We will take that live, and that should be a significant press conference. And then to lighten the mood of a very heavy day, we'll talk about how you've touched on it earlier about young South Africans, Youth Day and young people. How can they make money? I mean, seriously. So, and very important. So we'll talk about all that. And that reflects the national pulse.
Listen, and the young people are doing incredible things. That is coming up with Ashraf today. Interested to know the developments with that IFP presser, because the MKKZN head of elections, I think, was on the news circuits this morning talking about they've had positive engagements with IFP and ANC.
Everybody's
and EFF
talking.
And
the next 48 hours to Friday, just under, in fact. So the next, I would say 24 hours are just absolutely
crucial.
Key. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Ashraf is coming through at 3 until 6. All right, let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back. We wrap things up on our end, and we're looking at the role of fathers in raising successful young men.
Water infrastructure vandalism has costly and usually dangerous consequences. Stealing of manhole covers leads to the death of children. Every broken pipe or vandalized pump doesn't just cost money, but it also threatens our access to clean water, disrupts service delivery, and endangers public health and safety. Help us in the fight against water infrastructure vandalism by reporting any suspicious activity to the City of Johannesburg on 0800 002 587. Your vigilance can prevent a death or disaster. This message is brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
As we wrap it up, Jonathan Hoffenberg joins us now. He's the PACES Manager, Parents and Community Empowerment and Support at the Parent Center. We all know the role of mothers, and people always celebrate it and honor it. But I think, especially when we look at the conversations in South Africa, there's a lot of dads out there who go as unsung heroes in their child's life. And of course, it's Father's Day on Sunday. So a happy Father's Day in advance. And we thought we'd have this conversation with Jonathan. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm well, Bridget, and thank you very much for having me.
We appreciate the time. Let's dive straight into it. Fathers, especially good present dads, don't get the kind of celebration and honor just broadly in society as I think they should. And moms, please don't say, are we going to praise a duck for swimming now? But we must praise the duck for swimming.
Well, I think, and you said two things that really resonated with me. One, that when we think of mothers, we think of a complex, nuanced. If you ask the vast majority of people, why do mothers exist and what do they contribute? They'll be able to wax lyrical. They'll be able to go on and on. But if you ask people, what's the role of dads? Why are dads important? There's often quite a lot of ambivalence. We know from research, not only in South Africa, but in sub-Saharan Africa, there is often an absence of fathers. There's a father wound, and there's a contensation. There's a battle that happens with a lot of people, in that when we think of men in a negative perspective. We think of men as, rightfully so, contributing towards gender-based violence. There's that popular thought experiment right now that if you're a woman, what would you rather encounter in the woods, a bear or an unknown man? So when you're talking about the duck swimming, that's the thing, is I think that women have changed their roles, and it hasn't been easy, and the role of modern women in trying to balance being a wife, being a mother, having a career is a difficult one. But men are still trapped in quite narrow ideas of what it is to be a man, what it is to be a father, what a father entails. And often it's a conversation that is about that that it isn't just about bringing home the money. It isn't about being just a financial provider. And so as we head into Father's Day, and if you think of the gifts that we give to dads, we give them the ties, we give them the socks, we give them the things that are so that you can go out into that outside world and look smart, or we give you the type of things that, a pair of slippers or something that you can relax at home. So I challenge people out there this day, this weekend, give your dad something that you can play with him. If moms and you've got young children, give your husband a board game, a toy that they can play with their children. We need fathers to be able to be engaging with the lives of their children in a positive, meaningful, but also whimsical, fun, soft, tender manner that allows men to explore beyond the narrow confines of what it means to be a man.
And I love that. I literally just jotted it down. Give them something that enables them to connect in a positive, whimsical, fun, soft, tender manner, because that speaks to broad, sort of a wider appreciation of a human being. And it also speaks to the soft traits that ultimately will get passed on from dad to son or from dad to daughter.
Exactly, and all the global research that we have, we often talk about the negative factors of fathers not being there. And when I'm talking about fathers, I'm not just talking about biological fathers.
Yes.
The sad reality of South Africa is the majority of children are growing up in homes with single moms. About 40% of kids grow up with a single mom. But 80% of children grow up in a household where there's another man in the household.
Yeah.
An uncle, a grandfather, an older brother. So there are older men in the lives of children who can all play an important role. Because when men are involved in the lives of children, it's good for men. It means that we're less likely to be violent. We're less likely to take risks. We're more able to express our feelings. For boys, it enables them to learn that it's okay to express feelings. For girls, girls that are raised with a caring man in their lives are far less likely to go into abusive relationships because they know what love from a man looks like, So there are all these incredible benefits that come from children, for children and for dads, and also for women. We know from research that women's mental health, women's physical health, increases when they have a man actively involved in looking after kids.
Yeah. Jonathan, let's also touch, and we touched a little bit on it, but generationally, we see that those normative, what you call the normative expectations for young boys, and how they negatively impact the very same young boys when they ultimately become fathers. And then that obviously goes down another generation, and so the cycle goes. Breaking that normative expectation for young boys, reimagining that. How does one in this moment, if you're fathering in this moment today, how do you begin to break that chain and reimagine what is the new normal for you?
Well, one, it's about recognizing that change is possible, and here culture plays a very strong role. And culture has both positives and negatives. For example, a number of our cultures, you have a notion called damages, that if I get a woman pregnant outside of wedlock, I owe an amount to the family that needs to be paid before I can get access to that child. And again, we should not be using any reason for a dad not to be involved in their child. This is one of the things that, and I'm an umlungu here saying this, so I need to be sensitive, but I think that's one of the things about a lot of cultures that do need to change. Men need to be involved in their children's lives from the beginning. So firstly, it's about women and older men recognizing that they gatekeep and they often prevent men from being involved because that's not done. That's not how we used to do it.
Yeah.
Then secondly, there's been a lot of work on women and a lot of work on children, and we still have a country with terrible gender violence. But if we're not showing boys and men how to be tender, how to express their emotions, that it's okay to cry, that being a tough man means saying sorry, that being a tough, well-rounded man means that you should be able to go, I don't like that, that's hurting my feelings. So, when we raise boys and we socialize them that you don't cry and you shouldn't do chores and that there's a difference between boys and girls, we enforce a stereotype in a global world where women and girls are breaking out of those stereotypes and boys aren't. And if we're not doing something actively about it, it's not going to change. And here I want to kind of remind us that it's been, 30 years since democracy. And we thought on the eve of democracy that with apartheid going, we would, that racism would go away. But racism doesn't go away passively. Culture does not change passively. If we want men to be less violent, if we want men to be more present, if we want fathers more involved in their lives with their children, we need to take proactive steps to make this happen.
Yeah, I feel as if I should have, given our conversation more time, and hopefully we'll explore this on another day. But just in passing, Jonathan, in our last minute, words of advice for dads today?
Words of advice for dads: be courageous. I know that you might see the home as the woman's space. I know that you're hesitant maybe in going in, but take the courage, go in there, burn that toast, cook those meals, make the home your space, because it is also your space. And play tenderly with your children, especially with your young children. And let them direct the play,
Yeah.
Child-directed play is so empowering for you as a man and for your children, and happy Father's Day.
Oh, fantastic. Jonathan Hoffenberg, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
He is PACE's manager, and of course PACE's is parent and community empowerment and support at the Parent Center. Nothing more beautiful than seeing those videos coming out of social media of dad sitting there while his little daughter does his hair and his makeup and his nails, and then they do a little TikTok choreographed video. Oh, it is the best thing ever. We just love and appreciate you, dads. And of course, he's a dad, and he's coming up right now, 3 to 6, Ashraf Gada and his team. We will see you tomorrow for more conversation right here on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. Madupi standing by. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
Very much, Bridge. The top stories this hour: Tonga has declared a national disaster, and the MK Founders application is dismissed. Very good afternoon. Cooperative Governance Minister Thembing Kadimeng has classified last week's tornado that hit areas in the north of Durban as a national disaster. She today visited residents of Otongati, one of the hardest hit areas. At least 12 people died. Authorities say initial assessments show that over 7,000 households have been damaged and at least 17,000 people affected.